I skipped my own birthday because I was working a 16-hour shift. She posted pics of the cake with my brother's hand in the frame. I texted her just 2 words, happy anniversary. The pic that followed, me, with her sister. I skipped my own birthday. Not because I forgot. Not because I didn't care. I skipped it because I was stuck doing a 16-hour emergency shift, saving other people's lives, while mine quietly cracked in half. I'm Jake, 32, ER nurse. Been in this job for nearly a decade. You get used to long shifts, missed holidays, working while the rest of the world celebrates. But this birthday stung a little more than usual. I'd been with my girlfriend, Nina, for just over 3 years. She knew what my schedule looked like. She also knew how hard I'd been pushing through these back-to-back shifts lately, covering for people who called out or just couldn't handle the pressure. Still, when my birthday rolled around this year, she said we'd celebrate the weekend after. I've got something special planned, she'd smiled. I know this one matters. I didn't ask questions. I trusted her. We'd been through the usual couple drama in the past, some arguments, some distance, but we always came back stronger. Or at least I thought we did. On my birthday, I left before sunrise and didn't get home until after 10 p.m. I remember looking at my phone sometime around lunch. No missed calls. No texts. I figured she was waiting to surprise me later. It was wishful thinking, and I should have known better. But I kept working, bandaging people up, stabilizing critical patients, keeping my hands busy while the hours blurred. Around 7 p.m., I sat down in the break room and finally opened Instagram. I didn't even scroll. Her story popped right at the top. Bright pink letters. Happy B-Day to the best guy I know. Except the guy she was tagging wasn't me. It was a carousel of photos. A cake with my name on it, Jake, in big, sloppy icing letters. Then a picture of wine glasses. Then the third image, her, sitting in our apartment, candles lit behind her. And right beside her was a man's hand, lighting the candles. That hand had a leather bracelet with a tiny silver ring looped through it. A stupid piece of string I'd seen for years. Because it belonged to my younger brother, Kyle. At first, I just stared. My brain didn't want to connect the dots. I told myself maybe he was just there to drop something off. Maybe Nina invited him over to set things up before I got home. But the timestamp said the story had been up for 9 hours. 9 hours. She didn't tag me. Didn't send me anything privately. She didn't call. Didn't even text. I sat there staring at my sandwich while the rest of the world went quiet. I remember thinking, what else have I missed? Not just today, but in general. What have I not been seeing? I closed the app, locked my phone, put it face down on the table, and then I sent her 2 words. Just 2. Happy anniversary. Not because it was ours, but because I remembered something suddenly, with this sharp little sting in my ribs. Exactly 1 year ago, I had found a message thread between Nina and Kyle. Nothing overt, but flirty. Way too familiar. I confronted her. She laughed it off. Said Kyle was just a goofball, and you know how he is. I let it go. I wanted to believe her. Now I was sitting in a hospital break room, watching her post pictures of the birthday cake I never got to see, being cut by the same guy I once called my best friend. The silence in that room was heavy. I remember one of the interns walked in, asked if I was okay. I said I had a headache and needed 5 minutes. But what I really needed was to stop pretending I didn't already know what was happening. Because deep down, I think I always knew. And sending her that text wasn't about getting answers. It was a warning. Because this time, I wasn't going to just let it go. After I sent that text, happy anniversary, I didn't get a reply. Not right away. She saw it. I watched the scene, receipt pop up a few minutes later. Then nothing. Not a single word. I didn't expect a confession. Nina's not the type to admit when she's caught. She doubles down. Spins it around. Makes you question whether you're being too sensitive. It's how she won every argument we'd ever had. With that look that said, you're overreacting again. So I waited. Finished the rest of my shift on autopilot. Signed charts. Cleaned up a code blue. Replaced a dressing on a teenage girl's leg. Smiled when I needed to. But something was turning over in my chest, slowly, painfully, like a key in a rusted lock that had never been meant to open. By the time I got home, the apartment was dark. I expected to see her on the couch, waiting, maybe trying to act normal. But no, she was in bed already. Lights out. Door slightly cracked. Like it was just any other night. No cake on the counter. No wine glasses in the sink. Just silence and that strange, dry smell of vanilla candles. I dropped my keys. Changed in the hallway. Brushed my teeth like a robot. When I slid into bed beside her, she didn't say a word. Didn't even flinch. I turned my back to her. She turned hers. That night, I didn't sleep a second. Instead, I rewound everything. When you're betrayed, you start seeing the past differently. I kept going over moments I'd brushed off. Like the time I came home early from a shift 2 months ago and found Kyle in our kitchen, shirtless, holding one of her mugs. He said he was just picking up a phone charger. She looked flustered, said she was about to leave anyway. I asked why he didn't text me first. Kyle laughed and said, "You're always working, man." Then there was the road trip we were supposed to take last fall. I couldn't get the time off, so Nina went alone to clear her head. Said she needed a few days in nature. She posted scenic shots, mountains, waterfalls, her feet dangling from a hammock. I never saw who took the photos. Now I wonder if that hammock had room for two. Or the time my mom mentioned offhandedly how comfortable Kyle and Nina looked together at Thanksgiving. Like they've known each other for years, she said with a smile. And the truth is, they had. But not in the way I'd thought. I woke up early and made coffee the next morning. Nina stayed in bed. When she came out, she gave me a lazy kiss on the cheek and said, "Sorry we couldn't celebrate yesterday. I figured you'd be wiped." That's all she said. Not, "Sorry for not texting." Not, "I know it must have hurt." Just a flat excuse, wrapped in pretend concern. I nodded, like it didn't matter. Said, "Don't worry about it." And then I pulled out my phone and started digging. Not her messages. She was too smart to leave a trail there. I checked her Instagram archives instead. See, Nina used to be careless. She loved documenting things, even when she thought they were private. And she wasn't good at hiding the background. One post caught my eye from exactly a year ago, a group selfie at our place. My birthday last year. Everyone smiling. Cake in the foreground. I remember that night because I had worked a short shift and rushed home. In the photo, Kyle's arm is around her. Not in the obvious way, but his hands on her lower back. And here's the thing. Nina hated being touched in pictures. Always said it made her look awkward. But in this one, she's leaning into him. Smiling differently. Like they shared a joke the rest of us missed. Another archived story from 3 months ago shows her at brunch. The caption, "Caught off guard LOL." It's a candid of her smiling at someone across the table. In the reflection of the glass behind her, I could see Kyle's face. Holding the phone. The pieces weren't subtle anymore. They were just carelessly laid out. Like they never thought I'd look. Or like they didn't believe I was paying attention. And maybe I hadn't been. Maybe I was too busy holding everything together. Our rent, our bills, my insane hours. To realize I'd been carrying a relationship she'd stopped showing up for. I called in sick the next day. First time in over a year. I needed time. Not to yell. Not to fight. But to think. Because now I had to make a choice. Confront her and let her spin it again, or stay quiet and gather enough to own this ending. And something about staying quiet started to feel right. I wasn't going to lose my mind. I wasn't going to beg. But I was going to watch. And I was going to plan. Because if Nina and Kyle thought they could humiliate me quietly, they were about to learn how loud silence can be. I didn't say a word. That was the hardest part. Everything in me wanted to scream, to demand the truth, to call her out while she stood there sipping coffee like she wasn't breaking every promise she ever made. But I didn't. Instead, I played along. The next few days were ordinary, in the most artificial way possible. Nina would kiss my cheek, ask about my day, leave her laundry half folded on the bed like always. The apartment smelled like vanilla and shampoo. She even started leaving little sticky notes again. "Don't forget lunch," smiley face. As if she remembered how to pretend to care. But every smile looked rehearsed. Every glance had weight behind it. She was waiting for something. Maybe she knew I knew. Or maybe she was just guilty and hoping it would fade. Either way, I made a decision. If she was going to lie to my face, then I would smile right back and make sure she saw nothing coming. On Thursday, I invited Kyle over. I wanted to look him in the eye. It had been a while since we'd seen each other one-on-one. The last time was during a group hangout a couple months back, before things really started feeling wrong. Before I started noticing the way he looked at her when he thought no one else was paying attention. I texted him, "Pizza and beer night? Haven't had one in a while." He replied instantly, "Hell yeah. Been meaning to catch up, bro." That word, bro, felt like a joke now. But I let it ride. He came over just after 7. Walked in like he owned the place, threw his jacket on the armrest, and gave me that cocky grin he always wore when he thought he was ahead of the game. Nina was already home. She greeted him with a weird tension in her voice, like she was trying to sound casual, but her throat had locked up halfway through. She asked if he wanted wine instead of beer. He laughed and said, "Beer's more our thing, right, Jake?" I nodded, popped open 2 bottles, handed him one. Then I watched them. Watched how she leaned away from me, but toward him when she laughed. Watched how he finished her sentences like they'd rehearsed them. Watched how she smiled just a little too long when he complimented her new dress. It wasn't subtle. Not if you were looking. I wasn't angry anymore. Just fascinated. Like I was watching a slow car crash that both drivers were pretending wasn't happening. We sat down to eat. Talked about football. Nothing meaningful. Nina left us to let the guys hang out and went into the bedroom. Kyle waited until she was out of earshot and leaned forward. "You good, man? You've been quiet lately." I smiled. "Just tired. Hospital's been rough." "Yeah, I bet." He took a bite. "Hey, Thanks again for that loan a while back. That really helped. The money. Right. I'd almost forgotten. I'd lent Kyle over $4,000 when he was between jobs. Told him not to worry about interest. Told him we were family. He never paid it back. That night, I let him drink. Let him get comfortable. We watched an old movie we both liked growing up. At some point, he dozed off on the couch. I stared at him. That face used to mean home. Now it just looked like a lie. Later, when Nina went to take a shower, I used her Face ID to unlock her phone again. Still no texts between her and Kyle. She must have deleted them constantly. But in her notes app, I found a list titled Pros and Cons. I opened it. The first entry, Jake, stable, kind, reliable, good future. Second entry, Kyle, exciting, wild, unpredictable, better in bed. I stopped reading. Didn't need more. I put the phone down, walked to the kitchen, washed a dish slowly, breathing through my nose, trying not to snap the plate in half. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because something in me had shifted. This wasn't just betrayal. It was calculation. She was comparing me like I was some spreadsheet. And Kyle? He wasn't even a man. He was just fun. Disposable fun. I realized then that neither of them deserved a confrontation. They deserved exposure. And I knew exactly where to start. It was time to bring in someone who already knew how fake Nina could be. Someone who'd been warning me for months. Her older sister, Rachel. And this time, I'd be the one playing the game. The first time Rachel ever warned me about Nina, I didn't listen. It was a year into our relationship. We were all at a family dinner, and Rachel pulled me aside in the kitchen. She was blunt. She's not who you think she is, she said. Just keep your eyes open. I laughed it off back then. Said, I know Nina better than anyone. Rachel smiled, but there was something tired in her eyes. Like she'd already seen the end of the movie and didn't have the energy to argue with the idiots still watching the beginning. Now, 2 years later, I finally texted her. Hey, can we talk? It's about Nina. She replied almost instantly. Name the place. We met the next day at a small cafe downtown, the kind with old wood tables and soft jazz humming through hidden speakers. Rachel was already there, sipping black coffee. No sugar. No cream. She never did small talk. When she saw me, she didn't even say hello. She just looked up and said, You found out. I sat down. How long have you known? She tilted her head. You mean how long have I suspected, or how long have I been sure? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Rachel sighed and sat back in her chair. It's Kyle, right? I nodded. How did you know? Because I've known Nina since we were kids, she said. And she has a pattern. When she's bored, she creates chaos. And Kyle's just reckless enough to feed it. It hit me then that Rachel wasn't just mad at her sister. She was disgusted. She told me she had started noticing their behavior months ago. A late-night text she glimpsed on Nina's phone. A weird tension between them at their mom's birthday. The way Nina changed her voice when Kyle was around. But she didn't say anything. Not because she didn't care, but because, in her words, you can't save someone who insists they're not drowning. I stared at her for a long time. Then I said the thing that changed everything. I don't want to confront her. I want her to feel it. Rachel blinked, then smiled. I'm listening. The plan wasn't some dramatic explosion. That's not who I am. That's not who Rachel is either. It started small, subtle. I began texting Rachel more often. We'd never really been close, just friendly through Nina. But now we had a shared goal. And that made everything easier. A drink here. A lunch there. She'd send a selfie at a rooftop bar. I'd reply with a photo of us clinking glasses. Nothing inappropriate. Just enough to start poking the edges of Nina's trust. It worked faster than I expected. One evening, as I got home from work, Nina greeted me at the door. Her smile was tighter than usual. So, been hanging out with Rachel a lot, huh? I shrugged. She reached out. Said she wanted to catch up. Figured why not. She nodded slowly, but I could see the storm forming behind her eyes. The irony was almost poetic, watching her try to pretend she was the one being betrayed. 2 nights later, Rachel posted a boomerang on her story. 2 wine glasses clinking, a candle between them, a man's wrist just barely visible in frame. Mine. She tagged nobody. Said nothing. But Nina saw it. And that night, she didn't come to bed. Rachel was having way too much fun with this. Not in a cruel way. More like someone finally getting a little justice after years of being sidelined. She told me things I hadn't known. That Nina had a history of dating stable guys, then getting bored and chasing danger behind their backs. That I was the 3rd guy she'd done this to. That Kyle was just the latest in a long line of distractions. But the difference this time? Nina had picked the wrong target. Because unlike her past boyfriends, I wasn't going to just disappear. I wasn't going to vanish quietly while she paraded around like the innocent one. And I definitely wasn't going to let Kyle walk away like he hadn't just stabbed his own brother in the back. The next step was simple. I invited all 3 of them, Nina, Kyle, and Rachel, To dinner. No occasion. No reason. Just a casual, let's all catch up. Rachel grinned when I told her. You sure you're ready for this? I'm not just ready, I said. I'm done being polite. Because the truth was, I wasn't planning a dinner. I was planning a detonation. And the candles on the table? They weren't for romance. They were for lighting the match. I picked the restaurant carefully. Not too fancy, not too casual. Just upscale enough to make them behave. I made the reservation under my name. For seats. Window booth. Friday at 7. I asked for candles, and I asked the waiter for one simple favor. Don't rush us. This wasn't going to be fast. This was going to sting. Nina arrived first. She wore the red dress she knew I liked. The one she wore on our second anniversary. She sat down across from me, smiled like nothing had happened. You're in a good mood, she said. I smiled back. It's a good night. She raised an eyebrow, confused but intrigued. Then Rachel walked in. Nina turned stiff in her seat. Oh, I didn't realize she was coming too. I played dumb. Yeah, thought it'd be nice. Family dinner, right? Before Nina could respond, Kyle showed up. He froze when he saw Rachel. Rachel just smiled and waved. Hi, Kyle. He sat next to Nina, keeping his eyes low. The seating was perfect, me across from Nina, Rachel next to me, Kyle beside Nina. For a moment, we just sipped our drinks in tense, fake peace. The table looked nice, clean, normal, but beneath the surface, every knife was already drawn. We talked about nonsense for the first 20 minutes. Work, weather, traffic. Nina tried to control the flow of conversation, but Rachel kept interjecting with tiny jabs. Oh, Jake and I had so much fun at the wine bar last week. I didn't know you liked that type place. Jake and I went there just a few nights ago. Every time she said, Jake and I, Nina blinked just a little too long. Kyle picked at his food like it was poisoned. Then came dessert. I raised my glass. To honesty. And family. Rachel raised hers too. Especially the honest ones. Nina looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Kyle muttered, what's going on? And that's when I did it. I pulled out my phone. Opened the gallery. Swiped once. Turned it around. Showed them the photo. It was me and Rachel. At my place. On the couch. She was smiling, leaning into me. My arm was around her. It wasn't romantic. But it looked like it could be. Especially after the wine bar, the dinners, the tagged photos. And the caption? I had saved that for this moment. I turned the screen fully to Nina and Kyle. Happy anniversary. Nina stared at it. Then at me. Then at Rachel. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Kyle leaned forward. Wait, what is this? Rachel shrugged. It's just a picture. Or is there something about it that bothers you? Nina's hands were trembling now. You're sleeping with her? She hissed. I looked at her dead calm. No, but you thought I was. And that's all it took to break whatever illusion you were clinging to. Kyle stood up suddenly. All right, this is ridiculous. I cut him off. Sit down, Kyle. You're going to want to hear this. I turned to Nina. I know. About all of it. The messages. The brunches. The weekend trips. The quiet nights you said you were home alone. Nina's face was pale. Her jaw tightened, then loosened, like she couldn't decide whether to cry or scream. Rachel sipped her drink. I warned you, sis, she said. You always forget the people you hurt still have teeth. Nina looked like she was going to explode. You too, this was all just to mess with me. I nodded slowly. You posted pictures of cake with my brother on my birthday. You lied to my face. You brought him into my house. You used my kindness like it was a leash. So yeah, I decided to return the favor. Kyle muttered, this is insane. This is petty. I laughed once, quiet and sharp. What's insane, Kyle, is that you thought you could sleep with your brother's girlfriend for a year and still be welcome at his table. I stood up, dropped $200 in cash on the table, looked at Rachel. You ready? She stood, calm as ever. Born ready. We walked out, left the dessert untouched. As we left, I glanced back once. Nina was slumped in her chair, staring at the phone screen. Kyle looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Neither of them moved. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. The photo was out there. The silence was broken. But it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about clarity. And both of them finally saw themselves clearly for the first time. The silence that followed that dinner was beautiful. No angry texts. No late-night calls. No sobbing apologies. Just quiet. Nina didn't come home that night. I had already packed a bag in case she tried. I left it by the door with her name on it. Her key was deactivated. Her contact was blocked. Her toothbrush had been snapped in half and tossed in the trash. A little dramatic? Maybe. But after everything, she didn't deserve a quiet exit. She deserved exactly what she'd given me. A message with no words. And a silence she couldn't control. Kyle. He vanished. No surprise there. The man had spent his whole life ducking consequences. He didn't message me. Didn't show up. Didn't even try to defend himself. Which said everything. The next week, I called my mom. Told her everything. She cried. Not because of what they did, but because she knew, deep down, that Kyle had been riding on other people's generosity for years. She just hadn't wanted to see it. And now, there was no more denying it. Rachel and I stayed in touch. People assumed we were dating, especially after the pictures. We weren't. We didn't need to be. We shared something stranger than romance. Mutual betrayal, mutual fury, and a mutual taste for justice. She started calling me her co-conspirator. I called her the better sibling. It made us both laugh. One day, about 2 weeks after everything, I found a small box on my doorstep. No label, no return address. Inside was a simple picture frame. It held a photo from that dinner. Me and Rachel, clinking glasses while Nina stared daggers across the table. Written on the back in Rachel's handwriting were 5 words. Next time, choose better blood. A few days later, Rachel called me. She said she had one last thing to tell me. Something she hadn't mentioned yet. You remember that list in Nina's notes app? She asked. The pros and cons one? Yeah, she did that before. With her ex. The guy before you. I paused. She made a list? Rachel exhaled sharply. Worse. She sent it to him. Called him a starter investment. Said she was looking for a better deal. I blinked. Jesus. Rachel was quiet for a second. Then she said, funny how you were her upgrade, and Kyle was her excitement. And now? She's got neither. I nodded slowly, letting it settle. Let her sit with that. Life moved on. I got my own place. A little smaller, a little quieter. No fake notes on the fridge. No hidden messages in her eyes. No more guessing where she really was when she said, I'm running late. Just peace. Sometimes I thought about sending Kyle a bill for that $4,000 I lent him. Sometimes I thought about sending Nina a thank you card. Because her betrayal didn't just show me who they were. It reminded me who I was. Not a placeholder. Not a paycheck. Not someone you keep around because he's convenient. I was the guy they underestimated. And now, I'm the guy they'll remember. Every birthday. Every anniversary. Every time they see candles lit on a cake with someone else. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.